This, I think, is breathtaking. On the heels of the special committee in Congress looking into the various Secret Service failures that resulted in 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, we now have information about a really troublesome incident that went down this past weekend involving Barack Obama.
And a very clear lapse of security once again with a former president. This time it happened in Hollywood, where Barack Obama was going out to dinner at a Hollywood hotspot, Mother Wolf, and he was sitting in an SUV before dinner, sitting in his SUV in an alleyway. There were Secret Service agents nearby, and yet an armed man was able to walk right up to the window that Barack Obama was sitting on the other side of the door. An armed man walked right up to his vehicle.
With no Secret Service present where he was, right next to Obama as he's in that car, and the Secret Service there on the other side of the vehicle. Nobody is next to this man.
Right. The only saving grace here, we should say right off the bat, is that this person who was armed had no ill intent. He was actually an armed security guard who was working at a nearby a bar mitzvah that was going on upstairs from the restaurant.
Which we've actually covered here.
We talked about the bar mitzvah that Lil Baby was performed at this bar mitzvah. So they had armed guards at this bar mitzvah. One of them got word that someone came to him and said, it looks like there are federal agents downstairs. What's going on? They didn't know that Obama was there. No one did.
We should say, we have spoken with this man who was told, and he does not want us to use his name, but we've spoken with him.
Yes, and he told us that he then went downstairs to find out what was going on, and that's when this thing just takes a really weird turn.
Yeah, it's really weird to say the least. It's completely bananas, actually. So we caught up with the security guard, and he told us, hey, I'm just trying to do my job. They told me that there are a bunch of cop cars downstairs, there's Fed cars downstairs. I should go look into it, make sure everything is kosher. He goes downstairs, he sees this black SUV, and it's got specialty plates on it. He thinks, oh, could be a government official, that's interesting. And the car is cool, so he took a picture. He thinks, hey, I want one more picture. He gets a little bit closer, and he happens to look inside. It's freaking Obama with a laptop. He thinks to himself, holy bleep, I'm armed, and I could definitely be in big trouble right now, even
because
though
he's
I've done
assuming,
nothing wrong.
he is assuming that there are agents
watching
all over the place, and this guy is armed next to his car, and he's thinking, oh my God. And so he backs away and decides to
walk over to, he did see agents, right, Ryan? So it's not that there weren't any agents around.
They just weren't by the car.
They weren't by the car.
Yeah, essentially what it was the alley was not fully cleared, and that door that he came out was not checked, or at least it wasn't being checked at the time.
And and the Secret Service are there, and the guy walks up to the car. He is never told, don't do it. He is never blocked. He is walking up to this car with a gun, then realizes, holy crap, what am I doing?
So he wisely, I think, then turns and went and spoke to 2 agents, Ryan, that were, what, 10 feet away?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. He goes, he talks to the agents, he says hello. They were startled. They had no idea he was there. He turns around, walks back by the car again, and goes back up to the party and thinks that that's going to be that until he hears from is essentially the boss for the security, who's like, they want to check your credentials just to make sure everything's on the up and up. And so he did, and it all worked out.
And that was 30 minutes later. So you got to be wondering after he walked over to them, said hello, then walks back inside, the agents that are there have to be talking to each other like, what just happened? Who was that person? And remember, there was an agent in the car with Obama as well.
So they clearly, after the fact, said, who was that guy? And apparently what we were told, because we have spoken with him, is that, first of all, there were 5 security guards at this bar mitzvah. All 5 were armed.
Yeah.
And including him. And apparently the Secret Service didn't know anything about it. They went to the agent, they went to the supervisor to find out who this guy was. And I think at that point is when they found out
what was happening,
that there were people that were
armed.
armed.
A half an hour before they go to get this guy's credentials. What was the conversation about? Like, how did this happen? I mean, maybe they're just doing finger pointing at that point.
I don't think
and then
I don't think we're going to get an adequate answer. We called the Secret Service.
we have not heard back from them yet. And as you mentioned, we found out about this as on the day that they issued this report about Donald Trump. And the agency all of their failures are laid out in this report. And now they have another situation with another former president.
And by the way,
stunning.
Next to the car with a gun.
Hey Harvey, hey Charles. This is Emil from Glendale, California. Guys, I'm in shock. You know, the lack of oversight during the two most recent events with Trump, that alone was, you know, kind of freaked me out. Hearing this, I'm baffled, but I gotta say, like, thank God it was just a security guard. Thank God it wasn't someone with, you know, who meant to harm Obama. But it just blows my mind. It goes back to, you know, who's running the show here and how are they going to be held accountable? Especially in this case, you know, 30 minutes walking around like that. I just don't get it. I don't understand. We need answers.
And you know, when you look at the other ones, you know, there was a big thing about being understaffed and everything else. They had enough staff here to guard a car. They just didn't.
I will say something that's interesting. So this incident happened around 7:30 Saturday evening. By just after 9 o'clock, the former president is coming out of the restaurant, and his daughters had joined him, and their photos, we got, you know, the paparazzi were there by then. And it is interesting that in some of the photos with the daughters, you can see there's security. I'm just wondering that in that hour and a half, did everyone up their game and realizing that they had just had a lapse and now let's be on our game? Because in the photos at 9 o'clock, you see lots of security, lots of Secret Service.
And it's a really good point, because they knew between the time that this guy went up to the car and the time the daughters arrived, they knew about the security lapse because they had gone to the supervisor to try and figure out what had happened.
Yeah.
Really, really stunning.